Young, dumb, and full of Christ. My name is Matthew Kroll.
And I've masturbated 4 times this week, 4 or 5. My name is Shahir Dowd.
And this is the only podcast about movies, specifically the film Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out mystery.
Want to emphasize that we do open the podcast with quotes, not confessions.
They can be two things.
Yeah, and mine is both.
Yeah,
to be honest with you.
We're not.
Except these are rookie numbers. I gotta pump those numbers up.
Yeah, if we're going off of what Mr. Ryan Johnson is telling us. Yeah. I am very excited to discuss this movie. Okay. I saw it a while ago.
Okay, yes, you did. You went to a screening with Ryan Johnson in attendance, right?
Yes, Patrick Willems and I went to the Museum of the Moving Image, and we saw a screening with Ryan Johnson answering some questions and some Q&A afterward. It was just nice. I didn't feel like I learned like a ton of stuff about the movie in that moment, but it's really nice because I'd never seen Ryan Johnson speak, and he's just like,
He's a very smart man.
Very smart, but like a normal dude. Like, he's just fun, and he was cracking jokes at the right time, but not too much. He just was a really good speaker.
I mean, I think I said this we've done 3, at least 3 Ryan Johnson films on the podcast. This will be the 4th. I bought stock in Ryan Johnson all the way back in like 2006 when I saw Brick.
I still need to see Brick.
Brick is fantastic.
Brought up Brick a lot, actually.
Yeah.
And I'm
I can tell you exactly where I bought stock in Ryan Johnson. I have the moment in my head. There's a sequence in Brick, which is a chase sequence with 2 people running, and the entire premise or the threat of the running is dependent entirely upon the sound of one person's feet as they run. And like I as soon as I saw it, I was like, I'm in.
That's it.
I'm in. I'm 100% in on this. The shtick in Brick is that
the brick shtick?
The brick shtick is that they speak like 30s noir films, but they're teenagers. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Lucas Haas is in that. And it like the story didn't stick with me. I believe I probably reviewed it for the local newspaper at the time. But without a doubt, I was like, whoever this person is, I'm in. And he did not let me down with The Brothers Bloom, which is the next film, which I've seen a couple of times now. I think it was the first movie I actually put on my projector. The Brothers Bloom is the most is the best Wes Anderson film that Wes Anderson never made.
Nice.
It's really great.
I feel like I came on late in the scene. I feel like I saw The Last Jedi and was like, whoa, this guy's doing something interesting with Star Wars.
You must have seen Looper.
Yeah, but I didn't clock Looper as like Looper's fine, like it's good, but
Looper's
like
fantastic.
I don't know. It was a good movie, but I didn't like it. It didn't make me like be like, who made this?
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
No, it was actually Last Jedi for whatever reason.
I thought Looper would be right up your alley.
It's good. I like Looper fine.
Yeah.
It's just it didn't. Looper never made me have a lot of conversations like after the movie. I was like, that was fun. Yeah.
So my thing with Looper, so again, like going through the filmography, and we have other things to talk about, by the way, but we kind of dove in here. Looper was exciting for me, and I think I mentioned this during the Last Jedi podcast, because what I loved about him in as a writer-director for Brick and The Brothers Bloom is that he's a terrific writer. He's a really like literate writer, obviously someone who's very well read, and he expresses ideas very one verbosely. But second, he I feel like the thing is he enjoys writing, and like the actual writing, the sort of pleasure in his writing comes out in his screenplays and the way actors perform them. So I kind of really like that quality about him. And then what I was so excited by Looper was like, oh, he's got that quality and he's got ambitions to do action adventure, like bigger scale science fiction in that case. And the cool thing about Looper is Looper ostensibly in 2 areas. It's great that it's using Bruce Willis because it references, in a way, a little bit of 12 Monkeys. It's got a sort of similar premise to 12 Monkeys, which was famously based on a short film by Chris Marker, La Jetée. And it also references Akira. Yes. And the thing that I was so impressed by was that it did both of those things completely fluidly. And you don't know that the Akira part of that movie is coming until it comes.
Sure.
And it's like 3/4 of the way through the movie. I suppose that is a big spoiler for that movie. But and so I was just like, oh my God, not only is this guy that I've been clocking since Brick a fantastic writer-director, he's got ambitions to do bigger films. And then when we got to The Last Jedi, which was obviously the big thing that he did.
Yeah.
I was, this is what I said at the time, and you can go back and listen to that episode, was that I love Rian Johnson. I think, he brought a panache to The Last Jedi that we hadn't seen in a little while. He was bringing some new visual styling, so particularly that the Salt Planet sequence.
Yep.
But I was like a little bit like, I think I want to see more Rian Johnson and less Star Wars.
Well, we got it.
And that's what we got. And he's made a ton of money off of these things. He's produced 3 of them. He's got a huge deal with Netflix for them. And this is the third in an entirely created franchise that he has devised of his own making, which is going to be the first in 2 movies that we are going to be seeing in the next 2 weeks of franchises created by filmmakers getting to the third part of their franchise. Entirely whole cloth created. So I'm excited to talk about that in some respects.
I think getting to the mythical third film in a franchise is always interesting when for individual creators.
I mean, the question is the squeeze worth the juice at this point?
Yeah, I mean, wow, that's a phrase. We're gonna find out. We're gonna see what we thought about this movie. I very much, first of all, just as a aside before we get to the movie. I really enjoyed getting to see it at the Museum of the Moving Image. Yeah, I know you had to watch it at home due to
my foot.
Your foot. But it was really, really cool to see this film in that context. I really, not to get too much into Knives Out and also Glass Onion, I really like Glass Onion. Glass Onion is also a movie I like the more I see it. Actually, both of them are, to be perfectly honest, the first one and Glass Onion.
Yeah.
But Glass Onion, I've always watched at home. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It also came out during the pandemic.
Or no, a little bit after. You could, I believe at the time you could go see screenings of it. I just didn't.
Yeah.
So it was great to see everything that Rian Johnson and Daniel Craig have kind of learned about this franchise and Benoit Blanc and mysteries and all sorts of stuff just put on display again on a giant screen. Yeah. And I know it is playing at the Paris currently, but it was really wonderful for the Museum of the Moving Image to show it because I really love that theater as well. I know they do a ton of stuff, but it is harder to get tickets and things. And if Patrick hadn't had an extra, I would have never gotten to. He's like,
I like former guests actually always email me and take me to screenings at the Museum of Moving Image all the time. Yeah. Mark Pagan took me to a screening of Out of Sight.
Nice.
A little while back. People will, because they know we live in this neighborhood, and so when something's, and then I got to tell you one thing about the Moving Image. The movie's been shortlisted for the Oscars this year. The best film I've seen this year, without a doubt, is Sherian Dabi's All That's Left of You, which is a Jordanian film about Palestine and Gaza.
Yep.
And we saw it at Sundance, and it's without a doubt the best film I've seen all year. And the thing I'm really disappointed about in myself is I didn't realize they did a screening of it 2 weeks ago with her in attendance. And I think it was presented by Javier Bardem because Javier Bardem and Mark Ruffalo are producing that film now.
Got you. I feel like I sleep.
So there's so much stuff going on there.
Yeah, I sleep on the Museum of the Moving Image. I actually need to become a member. I will do that before the year is out, just to kind of. There's too much cool things, and you'll get first dibs at them if you remember there.
Can I tell you a really fun fact? So when I did move to New York, one of the things I really wanted to do was like, oh wow, I live in a city that has the Museum of Moving Image, and I went and visited, and it was like amazing. The first time I went there, if you haven't visited New York, you should absolutely go. It's an incredible experience, and they've got so much stuff. They've got one of the annotated Citizen Kane scripts as well as makeup stuff. The cool thing is they've got the Blade Runner models there that you see lit up. They had a Mission Impossible the exhibit recently as well. My son goes to summer camp at the Museum of Moving Image, so he gets to basically spend a week, 2 weeks sometimes, just being in that museum, like wandering from room to room. They make movies while they're there.
That's cool.
He gets to like go to screenings while he's there. So this thing that I was like, oh my God, was so excited to like experience just once. He gets it's part of the fabric of his childhood.
That's cool.
He's been there so often. He's like, he doesn't. It's old hat. Like when we go in there now, he's like, oh, I know where this. Like he knows that place inside and out.
That's cool.
Yeah. So it's a really really cool spot, and we should make more use of it.
I was happy to go and see this movie there.
Yeah.
But a place like that, I feel would be. I'm trying to think of the most eloquent transition as I label myself thinking of that transition. Seeing movies is a both magical and transformative experience, especially in a theater. And I think some of the most magical and transformative experiences that I have seen, oftentimes still getting to in the theater, was the films of one Rob Reiner.
Yeah, who passed away this week.
Yeah. That's super sad.
Yeah.
It's funny. Rob Reiner for me is one of those actor directors that I always clock is the level of work is insane. There's so much that he did. I always forget even knowing that, like how much. Like when I heard the news, I went back and sort of flipped through it. I was like, oh yeah, he did this. Oh yeah, he did that. Oh, what? I even forgot like All in the Family. That was him in it. And I'm like, wow. I forget how prolific his roster is.
I went to a movie screening with a friend of mine recently, and for some reason we got on the topic of Rob Reiner because we were talking, and this was like it was this year, earlier in the year. And whenever anyone asks me, like, what is the best run by a director in any given time period, you know, the classic is Francis Ford Coppola with The Godfather 1, 2, Apocalypse Now, and The Conversation. That's a 4-film run that's pretty amazing. And, you know, there are other directors you could talk about in that range, Spielberg as well. But the person I always think about who's not often considered in the sort of same auteuristic, or, you know, like grand auteur way that we think about Spielberg and Scorsese, for example, is Rob Reiner. And I just want to point out, you know, look, everyone's talked about this as well. But this run that started in 1986, the movies are Stand By Me, Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, Misery, and A Few Good Men.
Yeah.
That's a 5-film, like, A-list run.
And they're all kind of different genres.
They're all different genres. Horror, comedy, coming of age, romantic, you know, and a courtroom drama. Oddly for me, the weakest one of those films, and this will be insane for me to say this out loud, the weakest one for me is The Princess Bride. That's a movie I don't love, but the other 4 I absolutely adore.
I remember seeing North in the theater, which is the film that comes after with the film that comes after your run that you just went there. And I remember not particularly liking it.
Yeah. North is, you know, like it's the kind of the break. It's okay.
I kind of want, that's the one I'm the most interested in going back to for because I know those other 5 are bangers.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to be, I don't know. When this happened and I was like, oh, I want to watch some of his movies. I was like, when I started reading again, I was like, I think I want to start with North, and I can't label exactly why that is.
Well, the other thing for me is, and I remember this as well, is that one thing I was really fortunate for is in high school in New Zealand, we did a film studies module every year as part of our English literature class. And the first film I think we did would have been Stand By Me.
Yeah.
And I remember it vividly because I was like, I've seen this movie 10 times already, and now we get to watch it again and again and again for this class, and I get to like write about it. It was kind of hilarious. I thought it was funny, which was that you know, like we'd be given 2 weeks to do an assignment, and I'd be sitting in class doing nothing for like on day 2, and we had a substitute teacher, and they came in and they kind of yelled at me because I was doing nothing, and I was like, I've literally done all the work that was set for this class last night, because, and they didn't understand, they thought I was joking. Then they went through all of the work that I'd done, and it was just like, it's film, you know, like you don't need to convince me to do this. It's not homework. I kind of just would do this. And so Stand By Me was formative because I had seen it, you know, so many times before that movie, and it deeply emotionally resonated with me. The idea of friendship, and, you know, I think the final line of that film is, you'll never have friends like you did when you were 12 years old.
Sure.
And that really deeply resonated with me. And then when I got to like basically analyze and break down the movie in every single detail, that's kind of when I fell in love with like film theory, film criticism, filmmaking, and like, you know, a lot of people don't respond to that, you know, like having to like rewatch a movie over and over again and like break down every little detail as fun. But for me, it enriched the experience. And I think that movie in particular is just phenomenal. I rewatched A Few Good Men earlier this year as well, and it's just incredibly understated filmmaking as well.
It's funny. I didn't quite realize this until I saw an interview on Seth Meyers' show with Jack Black, and Jack Black said some words about Rob Reiner on it, about how there would be no School of Rock, there would be no Tenacious D, there would be
no Spinal Tap,
without Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
And this sort of knocked a memory loose for me. So I've talked before about how I used to make movies, like my first movies I used to make just with a friend that I'd bring to my grandparents' barn and farm upstate.
Yeah.
And I used to make parodies of action movies. I made a Tomb Raider thing. I made a Escape from New York thing. I made one that is called Kane Vengeance, which is like a third in the trilogy. Again, we'll get to trilogies. I shouldn't have done that one. It's not good. But the thing about Spinal Tap for me was that was sort of when I was doing things on my own, and I know this sounds silly, but as a kid that's when I was like an auteur. I'd be like, hey, I need you to do this, can you please do this, and people would do it. Spinal Tap, I had two friends in high school, Doug and Tristan, and they introduced me to Spinal Tap, and I became that was sort of our initial, essentially, comedy video troupe. That is when I became a member of a team when making it, like, small movies for ourselves.
Yeah.
Again, we're just kids in middle school and high school that are doing parodies of, like, we're parodying certain things back, and I completely had forgotten that we had our own fictitious British rock band named Iron Bruce. And Iron Bruce, it's funny, like, I won't go into the dumb kiddish bits, but we had like bits that were like not the same as Spinal Tap, but the tone and tenor of it was like Spinal Tap taught us comedy in a way that I had not done before, and B, I think eventually, like, things like The State and stuff like that took over for me. But Spinal Tap was the inspiration for bringing me together into the first group of people that I was making movies with, that was not just me with the camera and saying to my friend, hey, go run. This was us bouncing ideas and coming up with things together. So I'm super thankful for that. And I think a ton, even in the span of films that we've talked about here, which is basically Spinal Tap was what, 84?
Yeah.
All the way to North in 94. So in that span of 10 years, I guarantee you that Rob Reiner's work, even just in that small 10-year period, really did affect the media landscape and how people learned and collaborated and made films or got into making films, because again, I used the word ubiquitous before. That's what his body of work was.
He also was one of the co-founders of Castle Rock Entertainment, I believe, which is a really important film company as far as American cinema goes, and things like The Shawshank Redemption, I think, were on their slate as well. He helped other filmmakers get their first starts, and in terms of affecting culture. Apart from, I think he was in Taxi, the TV show Taxi, was that right? And famously was in The Wolf of Wall Street recently as well, but had a hand in the development of Seinfeld.
Yes.
So incredibly important filmmaker.
I don't Curb as well, right?
Is Castle Rock involved in Curb? Write us in, onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com. Let us know. I'll talk about this part for one moment here, but it doesn't deserve being talked about, and certainly not by us. But whenever I think there can never be a new low, there is a new low. And in a week when there was a mass shooting event in Australia in Bondi Beach at a Hanukkah event, which is terrible and tragic. Another shooting at Brown University at the time of this recording, shooter is still at large. And the Rob Reiner event, sort of all of these three things happened at the same day. And our president, decided to disparage the name of Rob Reiner because of a slight on his character that had happened earlier.
Because he badmouthed Trump.
Yeah, but whenever I think there isn't a new low, here we are, at an absolute new low. And the thing about it, I guess at this point is it is not even unsurprising.
No.
It's and one thing that has happened in the last year that I can safely say, other than between the years of 2016 and 2020, has probably not happened that much in our culture and society in general. Although you can disagree with me, write us in. is I have shown my son clips of the president of the United States and used it as a talking point of behavior that we should not model, like a behavior that we absolutely should not model for our children. And I've shown my son clips of, in recent weeks, Donald Trump talking about Somalian people and said, this is absolutely how you will not talk about another human being. And it is, isn't it like mortifying in some sense that that we can use the president as a model of how not to behave?
Oh yeah, throw that on the pile of a million other things.
Yeah.
The dude's brain is literally a cat box in a blender at this point. Like I like the Reiner response, the making it about himism of it, and in a way it's working because we're talking about it.
Yeah, exactly.
But it is a level of dementia I thought his handlers would not be truly with.
Yeah.
Like it's truly an age
truly
adult
ghoulish.
mind. Well, it's ghoulish, but he's always ghoulish, right?
Yeah.
But also here, it's fucking dumb.
Yeah.
Like, in video games, the text would pop up on the screen. Everyone disliked that. Like there's no that is. I am not a medical professional, but that is something wrong with a person's mind on a chemical level. And that's rock and roll. Here we are, America. Anyway, let's not stick on that too much.
Yeah, sure.
Let us continue with a film that I cannot believe how much I adored. Bar none, this is, I'll say it, I know we're talking about threequels. This is my favorite Knives Out movie.
Wow.
I love this movie so much. I will watch it again with Jamie probably later tonight if I can get through my work after this podcast. I will then watch it with my parents when I go home. When I left the theater, and it's funny, at first I was like, man, is it just because Rian Johnson's here and I'm at the Museum of the Moving Image and me and Patrick get to like chat about it afterward?
Yeah.
Sure, that all plays into it. But I think this is every one of these films, actually from Last Jedi to Knives Out to Glass Onion to this, I can see essentially growth. Like I feel like I can track like just new skill levels being unlocked in this stuff. And I am enamored with this movie. I love it a lot. I think my order at this point would go this, the original, and then Glass Onion. Although I know some people have kind of soured on Glass Onion. It's a little more silly and over the top. And I like the return to form of a sort of classic small town murder mystery in this regard, where that one was so like, because it's influencers and billionaires and that
Greek Islands, right?
Yeah. Although that one did have Catherine Hahn.
And Edward Norton.
Yeah. So
Kate Hudson too.
They're always stacked casts.
I mean, the reason being is that again, he's demonstrated time and time again that he's such a fantastic writer, and who would not want to be in one of his films?
Yeah.
Also, prodigiously gifted cineast. Like someone who really knows and understands films. Again, I'm telling you, the buy-in for me was the sound sequence in Brick. It absolutely was that. And so, I've always kind of tracked that this is a person who's deeply committed to the technical challenges of what it takes to make a film, but it can also like maneuver the machinery in like beautiful ways. And I think he does that. Before we move on, could you tell us what Benoit Blanc is up to in this third installment of the Knives Out franchise?
I sure can. I jumped it. I'm so sorry.
No.
Here we go. The Internet Movie Database says, quote, Benoit Blanc returns for his most dangerous case yet.
Is it his most dangerous case yet? I don't think it is. This is the thing. I don't think it is.
I don't think it's his most dangerous case.
He was in more danger in Glass Onion than he was
way more danger in Glass Onion.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was never in danger here.
No. The crime had been committed before he'd gotten there. It was just a matter of figuring out who done it. I'm going to take you on a little bit of a ride in terms of my feelings about this particular.
Bring it. I am also. If I'm guessing you're not on the same page as me, which is totally fine.
Yeah.
I'm willing to throw down for this one.
Go for it.
I'm here.
Let's do it because I want to tell you a little bit of a ride. I want to take you on a little bit of a ride in terms of this. The first thing is, there has been in not in recent years, there's been a developing phenomenon over the last 20 years, probably since the start of The Sopranos, this sort of like convergence of what television is to what film is, right?
Woke up this morning, got yourself a gun.
Yeah, there we go. And blacked out right at the end of it. And like we've seen things like Game of Thrones prove that they can be on the scale of a blockbuster movie. Breaking Bad can be on the sort of depth of scale of something like The Godfather. And even right now, Stranger Things is kind of, it takes things like Stand By Me and makes it into, a horror franchise, a burgeoning horror franchise as well. And, as a result of that, we're seeing less investment in feature films when stories can be told on a broader scale on television. And the reason I bring that up is that there's an interesting thing about this particular franchise, which is that for me, this particular film is kind of like just hitting that borderline where it is starting to feel more television than it is more film. And particularly with this third outing here, I felt like, oh, this is closer to television. And now this is also taking into account the sort of the convergence of those two mediums where television is feeling more like film. And this particular film to me felt a little more like what classic television was.
I was making a lot of shocked Pikachu faces. I didn't want to interrupt your flow.
No, sure, yeah.
But I was, audience, listeners, friends, Topam fam, I was shocked.
Okay, let's continue for a moment there. I am again on board with the Rian Johnson project, and if the thing I asked for from The Last Jedi was, I want to see Rian Johnson original franchises because I think he is such more interesting than the material he's working with in that particular case. And so for that reason, I'm all on board. If Rian Johnson wants to make only Knives Out movies for the rest of his life, then sure, that's what I'll do. I was excited to sit down on a cozy evening, and I think one of the things in terms of that conversation about whether a movie gets a theatrical run versus it's on Netflix is that the movie was instantly accessible to me on Netflix. I could watch it at home. I could get cozy. I've recently just had, some ankle surgery. So I, unable to go to a movie theater. And so being able to like pull up the movie right in front of me, the access that Netflix provides is fantastic. Secondly, in terms of cast, this movie is stacked, obviously, as we've kind of mentioned, because it is, everyone wants to work with him. So you've got Glenn Close, you've got Jeremy Renner, you've got Kerry Washington, you've got Daniel Craig, Josh
Brolin, Josh O'Connor, Mila Kunis, Andrew Scott, Daryl McCormick.
And they're all terrific in this.
Thomas Hayden Church,
Thomas
Jeffrey
Hayden
Wright,
Church.
Kaylee Spaney.
Yeah, everyone's in here, and everyone's showing up, even in tiny roles. I was like, why is Kerry Washington in this role? Why is Andrew Scott doing this?
Yeah.
And it's obviously because they want to do this. And I think that for me, the two people that get to do the most is Glenn Close and Josh O'Connor.
Yeah.
And I think Josh O'Connor, by virtue of what the movie, the way the movie is written, kind of like gets to do the most in the movie. Glenn Close gets to be Glenn Close by the end of this, and it's like, yeah, that's freaking Glenn Close in this movie. She's going to have a big role in this. That said, in terms of the convergence of television, thing that I was sort of talking about earlier, this felt oddly, to me, kind of the least cinematic of the three.
What?
100% the least cinematic.
Insanity. Can you break that down for me? Because I was going to go on a whole diatribe of I even went in and looked him up because I wanted to make sure I was going to talk correctly. The cinematographer is Steve Yedlin, I believe it is, who's worked on a ton of Rian Johnson's projects. Yeah. I thought this movie was, I hate to use the cliche term, so cinematic. I thought that it was just shot because Netflix, there's so much swill on Netflix.
Yeah.
Like you look at something like The Gray Man or like Red One wasn't on it, but it should have been. Red Notice, is that the other one?
Yeah,
like
Dwayne Johnson.
And it's so like A shot, B shot.
We should define what cinematic means here, because it can mean a lot of things.
1,000%.
Television can be, Game of Thrones is extremely cinematic.
So was it the visual quality of it that made you feel that way? Was it the pacing of it? Was it the structure of it? Like what knocked you into TV Town?
What knocked me into TV Town of this was I guess in some way it's the scope of the story, and the secondary thing is that the film in a way for me operated on the level of here is the mystery, here are the characters, here is the solution. As opposed to like Knives Out, which I think was kind of a little bit piercing in terms of its examination of the way power structures work and in the way wealth, generational wealth can affect people in certain ways. Glass Onion had also had a very pointed kind of idea about wealth capitalism and what it does to people over time, particularly people who are disconnected from the everyday. And I felt like this movie was kind of getting at this idea of faith and like
it was deep as hell.
But honestly, for example, we did another Josh O'Connor film, La Chimera, earlier this year, last year, I think it was, where that is a film that's really talking about the relationship between the past, the present, and objects that we leave behind, and people. And on the one hand, I'm very appreciative of the fact that, again, as a writer, Johnson can kind of like have his characters talk about big ideas. On the other hand, I found this to be quite a hollow experience.
What?
I really found none of the characters were particularly interesting to me in terms of what their ideals were. The Josh Brolin character, basically what's happened in this town is that there's a dwindling flock for this church, and Josh Brolin's character, Monsieur, what is his name?
Wicks. Jefferson Wicks.
Yeah, Monsieur Jefferson Wicks is kind of like
Monsignor.
My apologies.
Which is not actually a actual, like, you're not higher than other priests with that. It is sort of a thing that is an aged out, where again, the character like Josh Brolin is playing would want to be called that. It's like, I'm higher than you, even though I'm not higher than you.
Right. And yeah, of course. And, he's basically driven out most of the flock by essentially tapping into this idea that giving his flock something to hate unifies them in their belief structure.
How would that ever be relevant to any of our day-to-day lives this time period?
It's fascinating how much, this one figure in our lives has kind of like become so iterative within cinema. Again, thinking about the Wonder Woman 1984 character played by Pedro Pascal.
I read a tweet, or not a tweet, I read a post today about literally, isn't it crazy that you could just say the phrase or post the phrase, he's an idiot, and 90% of the population would know exactly who you're talking about.
100%.
It's fucking insane.
We are living in the upside down.
Yeah.
Is that, but I found that, I found that what that hate was and how these characters had pivoted towards sort of ostensibly right-wing conservative politics to be a little bit like, wait, what is their thing that they're into? Like Andrew Scott's character, the writer, was once formerly a science fiction writer who is now writing some kind of biography of, or some sort of text about right-wing conservatism in some way. And he's built a moat around his house, which I think is hilarious.
Yeah.
But I was like a little bit loose on what this was. The character played by Leave It to You, Leo Grand actor.
I don't know what you just said. So,
the Leo Grand, the actor from Leo Grand.
Good luck to you, Leo Grand.
Good luck to you, Leo Grand.
Daryl McCormick.
Daryl McCormick. He is a right-wing conservative who basically has this hollowed out position where he's like tried to do the same thing.
Well, he's trying to be an influencer.
But he's now trying to push that into influencer. I found all of this kind of hollow. And then there's a sort of third layer story to this about essentially the origins of Monsignor Wicks' mother, who is the Scarlet Whore. What was her name? The
character's name was Grace.
Yeah. But the story of the excuse the vernacular here, but the whore that ruined the church or ruined her father's life before that. And I found all of this, like, again, interesting stuff, but interesting stuff, like, but none of it really rang into anything for me that I found compelling in a way that I was like, that's what this movie is really getting at.
But you kind of skipped over the whole faith bit. Like, I think Ryan Johnson has taken some stabs at conservatism here, no question.
Yeah.
I think those are just the free jabs to the tummy. I don't think that's what this movie is about at all. I think truly, as you brought up, this is the exploration of what faith does to people. We've seen what institutional wealth does to people. We've seen what the mental illness of vast amounts of new money does to people. And now it's what happens to a human being when faith is involved. Now, here's something that I really respect about this movie and the story that it's taking. I am not a religious person. I am all about dunking on Catholicism. On the bad parts of it that I see. I know there's a lot of good that it can do as well in the world. And I went into this movie expecting this movie to kind of dunk on Catholicism.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Nope.
And then Ryan Johnson talked about it in the thing. He grew up in Catholic, this world, and I love that. Basically, it's funny because you brought up characters that I wouldn't even that I consider sort of second or third tier. Which, whether or not they're interesting to you, that's not what I'm going to argue. I think between Benoit Blanc, basically Josh O'Connor, the father, Glenn Close playing Martha, and Josh Brolin's Jefferson Wicks are sort of the four different ways that faith can affect a human being. Sure. And we can talk about them as we go through when we start talking about things that happen in this movie. But I loved it because I felt like I got the gamut of the entirety of what this incredible power in our world can do to the human mind. I won't even say the people that I think the flock, as it were, which I think do not, like the four characters that I just mentioned are kind of outside of that flock, but all of the side characters that like the conservatism played for the joke, or Kerry Washington's lawyer, or even Kaylee Spaney's sort of like the person who is an artist who lost their ability to perform because she's a cellist, but she's in chronic pain and she's trying to pay money to like get that away. Like all the different, like they kind of represent all little tiny minor things that like sort of have weeded their way into this, but the way that faith affects a human mind, much like wealth in the two other versions of it we've seen in the other films, are purely based around these four characters. You have Benoit Blanc, who is, I think one of his lines is like, he just, the way he ever talked about it, he's like a proud atheist or something who worships at the altar of reason. I'm paraphrasing. That's the wrong thing. Yeah. Then you have Father Judd, who is a man who I feel like was like Benoit Blanc, found faith, and now really like truly believes it. There's many moments in this movie, particularly ones that when they first start, I'm like, why are we doing this now? And then eventually I'm like, oh, like it's sort of like the polar opposite of like that being good. Then you have a character like Martha, who is played by Glenn Close, who is much older than the other two people here and has sort of had a run of basically is the turn point, the middle point. She's used faith in her life to obviously lead her, but that's also held people down specific to her own history. And eventually through the end of this film, which we'll get to, there is a true moment of change. And then there is obviously Jefferson Wicks, who I think started in a place of faith that was sort of in a good thing and eventually morphed into using it as a tool for wickedness, as for lack of a better term. And power grabs. And I found the exploration of those four characters in particular, by the time the story was finished, so just deep and interesting and wonderful. I expected this to be a movie that dunked on religion. And this movie got me thinking more about religion and what it actually does than most religious texts do, because it's not about the texts. It's about how people use them and use, honestly, the gospel, faith, religion for good or ill. And it's wrapped in a fucking crazy cool mystery. And I also loved the idea, and as we get into the sort of the mystery element of this movie, it ties all of that in. Like the main, we'll sort of get into spoilers lightly, but there is a moment, the titular dead man wakes up, air quotes, and you have to parse together like, what? Like, because it's a whole thing. It happens on Easter and then rises again in the 3 days and like the whole thing. And it uses the iconography, but then the use of that iconography becomes part of the mystery. Like, I never thought like, oh, this is actually happening. It was more like, how did this work? Who was doing it? And again, with Ryan Johnson, he's so fucking good at literally giving you every answer you're looking for in the background or somewhere else where you're not looking. The case in point, there's the weapon that eventually kills Monsignor Wicks is a dagger with a wolf's head, a red wolf's head, or devil wolf or whatever. And they essentially, there's like a line about two devils, but that could be a reference to every time there's two people working together to do something bad, or because there's two different groups that do that in two different ways, or one of the, again, spoilers for the thing is they think there's only one devil wolf head, but there's actually two. Like little things like that, lines, things in the background, characters doing something that would like give them, it's like a tell they give away Glenn Close has that you kind of can like follow after you know the whole story. You watch it again and you're like, everything was here. Everything is so meticulously planned. And it makes me want to go back and rewatch the first two, because I didn't clock that instantly, like that level of like depth in the other two that I think this one has. I've been playing a lot of there's a video game out now called Blueprints, which is a puzzle game. If you haven't played it, Sheer, I think you'd actually really, really enjoy it. It's an indie game made by one dev, but like it has a couple jobs like farmed out to other people for art and things. And it is essentially, you are an inheritor of your grandfather's estate. The rooms all shift, and you get to win all of his money if you can find the 46th room in his 45-room estate. That's like the gimmick.
Okay.
And it is, so every room you explore, like every time you're playing it, you figure out a certain, like, you pull a thread, something else unravels, and it makes you instantly like think about, oh wait, why are these chess pieces in all of these other rooms? It's hard to sort of describe without doing it. But this movie does that with all of its minor pieces of information. Like I feel like I will be rewarded upon 3 or 4 rewatches of this honestly more than the other two. But again, it makes me want to go back and see if I'm actually if that's the case.
So yeah, I can 100% see, and it will always make the case that Rian Johnson is a buttoned up writer. You know, every detail is thought out. You know, like these are intricately woven screenplays, all of them, even his Last Jedi screenplay, which every possible permutation has been thought out. There's the very famous moment during the press run for The Last Jedi where someone pointed out something about Jedi mythology not being able to do certain things. And there's a video of Rian Johnson going, "Excuse me," and he pulls out like a book from his archive of Jedi mythology, and like says, "Actually, this is how it happens." So he's very aware of the details and what have you. I guess my point is, of the 4 characters that you mentioned, you know, sort of being at odds with each other in terms of the interplay of faith here, I would take 2 of them off the board right off the bat, because I don't think they actually have much to say about the conversation of faith that this movie is having, and that is Glenn Close's character and Josh Brolin's character.
What?
They're
the transitional characters. The other 2 are like the paragons.
To me, the sort of battle of faith that's happening in this film is between Benoit Blanc and Josh O'Connor's character.
But they don't change.
Well, I don't think the other 2 characters
They
change.
do.
And I think that, to me, the interesting thing about this movie is when those 2 characters, one who is clearly disavowed of the faith and who sees it as he describes in the film, as a series of stories, and who Josh O'Connor's character rightly says, yes, they are stories, but what's important is whether those stories help us lead a better life. And there's a beautiful sequence in there. So in terms of the cinematic quality, there's a sequence in there that I would say is cinematic, in when Josh O'Connor is basically having that conversation. And behind him, they do this beautiful thing throughout the church, which is that the moment in which the light enters the church is when the moment that the revelations happen.
Sure.
And as O'Connor is kind of talking about that, light comes in through the glass, the glass windows, the stained glass windows, and Benoit Blanc observes like his Josh O'Connor's commitment to faith, right? But what I don't get a sense of is that Benoit Blanc, who is kind of the sort of through line character through this, he is the the primary detective through all of these characters, the one who observes more about human nature than anyone before. I think he gets a sense that, yes, Josh O'Connor's character has this great faith, and there's a beautiful sequence, I think, later on where Josh O'Connor, what is his name? Judd?
Judd,
Father Judd is trying to figure out who called in the forklift at a certain moment, because that will determine who was the murderer. And the person whom he calls realizes that she's talking to a priest, or knows that she's talking to a priest, and asks him to pray for her. And he, rather than continue with his search, stops and actually does pray for her. And that's a moment where Benoit observes, as like the sort of counteracting force, that there is some good to the faith that this person does, even though he doesn't believe in, ostensibly what is happening there. He does. He can recognize that that Father Judge has good in his heart in terms of what he wants to do. And but the thing is, he recognizes that right from the get-go. Like, he comes in and he says, "You have not slept for days. I can tell that you are a person who is not interested in proving your innocence, but rather finding the truth." And like, that is
right. That's not the same thing as what you just described.
Right. But that's what Benoit Blanc says.
Right. But that's not the same thing as what you just, I'm sorry, maybe I got lost in the sauce. Can you read?
So what I'm saying is that he recognizes that there is like truth to this person, and he's a good person at heart, right? Like he's not attacking this, he's not interested in interrogating this person in terms of their faith.
Well, he knows he's innocent from moment one.
Yeah. And so I think, so again, to me, the interesting part of this film is how those two characters will interact with each other, in terms of like one person who has faith and who believes in faith and believes in like the power of the stories that they tell, and one person who doesn't quite believe in those things, but believes in rationality, and that everyone is motivated by a more primary sense of like self-preservation. But I also, and which is why I think those two, the Glenn Close and the Josh Brolin character, should be taken off the board in terms of this debate.
Disagree.
Because ostensibly they act in their primary interest the whole way through.
But they're
not interested in the faith.
Their whole story arc, it doesn't matter the character, if how it is displayed with the characters interested in the faith, you can see how faith has affected them and how it has changed them. That's the whole thing. Whereas the other two characters, and this is why I think it's so interesting that I four quadranted it. Like, that's why I like looking at it like this. The two characters of Benoit Blanc and Father Judd, they don't change, but they come to see where the other one is coming from, and they see the value of it, but their core beliefs do not change.
They don't,
but listen, the other two do change.
Yeah.
Granted, I would say the weakest of this part is Monsignor Wicks, but you hear about a little bit about the backstory and how he was one way.
It's interesting that we don't really get a sense of how his mother's downfall affects him.
I think you kind of see it from just because he's a dick.
But he doesn't like talk about it or anything. Like, we don't ever get to see the impact of it. It's just like, he's a dick.
I don't know. I feel like the movie does a good job sort of visually, and also in its sort of montagey type moments of the past to like inform you as to why that is. But I do think that both Glenn Close specifically too, at the end of this movie, and there's, I guess we're just kind of like diving right into because we've been going for a bit. We're diving right into the end. She is explaining what happened. She is one of the people that is
laying it all out.
Got caught and is doing it because she wanted
the money.
Well, no, she didn't want the money.
She wanted the diamond to preserve the church. And preserve her life.
But the thing that she wants forgiveness before she dies, because she poisons herself. And he's offering forgiveness. Judd's offering forgiveness as a priest, but then he literally says, and for grace, because this is a woman that Glenn Close's Martha has besmirched and used as a cudgel against everything. It's supposed to represent everything that she hated, even though she fell into a lot of those tropes herself. Because it basically became one of the 7 deadly sins of envy. She wanted to be Monsignor Wicks's father's or grandfather's daughter, but she never could be. And finally, due to, and this is the great part, this is why it's sort of a 4-quadrant thing, due to a weird sacrifice that Benoit Blanc does. Benoit Blanc does not get to have his aha moment. He for an audience of characters that are real to him in the movie, we get one as an audience.
He doesn't. Martha comes in and he's like, "Now you're going to tell me everything. But I've given you this time to do this."
Right.
So he solves the crime.
No, that's not what I'm saying. Listen to what I'm saying, please. What I'm saying is that at that moment at the end of the movie, normally in front of everyone, he's all the characters, he does that thing.
Yeah.
Here, he acts like he doesn't have it and gets lots of them to leave. And it is a moment between him, Martha, and Judd.
Right.
And in that way, he's like basically essentially letting a thing he doesn't believe in take the wheel, and his sort of belief in Father Judd being able to maneuver the situation correctly to get Martha to to truly have a moment of absolution. And it's something that, because like we know as viewers of these three movies that Benoit Blanc fucking loves this. He loves being the aha guy. That's his whole thing. And here he gives it up. And again, not in front of us, the audience. We get that because nom nom nom, we're the audience. But he gives that up from the other characters. He doesn't get to have that.
I don't see this as a motivating factor for him. Like, I think
I don't get it, man.
Like the for him, the motivating factor is to be able to solve the impossible crime,
but also to be seen as someone who gets to solve the impossible crime. I 100%
don't see that as a motivating factor for him in this particular.
Watch it again. Run it back.
I will. You can say it as loud as you want, but I honestly did not go, oh, what he really wants of this film is to be able to have the grandstanding moment and have everyone like see how
there's
great
moments in this movie that literally like hint toward that. Like he acts the whole way that he acts in this movie is toward that.
As being like, I want to have the moment. Like that's
there's
really
yes.
Like, give me one.
He literally sits down and says, I can't solve it, and he basically lies to people to get them to leave to then give it to these specific characters that affect him.
Right. But you're saying, so what he wanted in that scene was to be, what he really wants as a character is to be able to have that moment where everyone goes, Benoit Blanc is a genius.
Yes. And he doesn't get to have that in this particular case.
I 100% do not see that as a motivating factor for him in this movie.
I can't help you there.
Like his big thing for me in this movie is the beauty of the crime itself. You know, like the hollow box. You know, the idea of the three-walled room where a murder took place.
Right.
To be able to solve that is for him is the goal.
Publicly.
I 100%, like there's even a moment where he gets to grandstand and like and stand.
But then he stops himself and changes his tone of how he's doing.
He stands on the pulpit.
He sure does. And then he stops himself.
No, he doesn't stop himself. He stands on the pulpit and then he turns to Judd and he's like, this is what I need to do in order to get these people to listen to me for this moment. But it's not because I want them to believe me. What he wants is to solve the crime. I 100% do not see. Like,
I can't help you.
I'm like on board with some of the things you're saying, but this idea that Benoit Blanc is there to be like his motivating factor is that he wants to be seen as the genius is in no way prevalent
all
to
of
me
these movies.
In this movie,
I'm not saying that he doesn't want to solve the crime as well, but the entire his entire mythos is he is this genius detective.
And he is.
Yeah.
And that's why he's there. But
I just think it's an interesting correlation between like how faith can actually affect people and how even in a moment when it's normally what he would do, the faith that he has observed through either Father Judd or other people around him, it like actively changes what he would do and allows for a different kind of moment to happen. Again, we're not,
Sure.
I don't think we're going to agree.
Yeah.
Email us in onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com if you get either of our points.
But to me, again, I think the interesting idea that I don't think is really fulfilled in this film is this sort of conversation of faith versus, rationality between Father Judge and Benoit Blanc. Father Judd. And I don't feel like that goes anywhere other than here is the crime. Here is how it was resolved. Here is what the end point is. And look, he stuck the diamond up, his faith is rewarded. I like, for example, if we took a film, there are two films that come to mind. Martin Scorsese's film Silence, which is a film about like faith versus the absence of, the absence of evidence of faith and what, how a person lives their life. And the other one that we just did was Conclave, where a man whose faith in the institution is challenged and has to be tested by the outcomes of the book. These are obviously very different films, but those are, like, in my opinion, in terms of that rational argument, rationality versus faith argument that those films are having, those are films that, at least in my mind, resolve in a far more compelling way.
I think that's the problem. It's not. That's not what I'm saying, though. It's not an argument of faith or of rationality versus faith or that. It's showing how faith like money in the other two Knives Out movies, affects people in different ways. Not whether rationality or faith, it like that, not that constant fight. It's just showing how it does it and how it affects for good and ill people's minds.
So, and in terms of that, I guess I think all of the characters, and this is going to be my harshest criticism of the film, is all of the characters are so wafer thin and so surface level uninteresting. Like, I don't think we watched the same movie. To me, every single character, other than Judd, who is better written, is so.
And Benoit Blanc.
I find Benoit Blanc in this movie to be like a secondary character. He kind of, he pops in and out just to be there. And we can 100% disagree on this, but like I found the sort of characterization of everybody in this film so wafer thin.
I think the congregation is thinner than the other four that I mentioned.
I'm just like, what is this Kerry Washington story? What is the Andrew Scott story? What is like the Jeremy Renner, who ultimately, spoilers for the film, is the big bad. Under the tutelage of Martha,
using an iPhone.
Yeah. Was he? There was a moment where Andrew Scott's character uses an Android phone, and I was like, oh yeah, there's that thing that Ryan Johnson, that they talked about it. But honestly, I was like, what are these characters motivated by? Like that we talk about this idea that he was divorced and angry, but like at some point he murders like the Monsignor, the person that's giving him the most fulfilling part of his life.
I like it. I think it's what makes them all interesting suspects is the fact that they all say that they sort of have faith or they're going into this congregation for their own specific selfish reasons. But they're not none of them are actually faithful of these wafer thin people. They're using faith.
But they're also wafer thin.
But I think that is a good, I understood every motivation from all of those characters. Now, was it the main point? No, but I got it. And I understood that because oftentimes 9 times out of 10, when you have people that this is sort of showing off, a lot of the motivation is just greed. And that's kind of where we were with a lot of these folks. Yeah. So again, because I did find those other four characters so deep, I was like, yeah, no, I get it. I'll give you this. I think they shorthand a lot of stuff with them, but I never was like, oh man, I really wish I understood the complex motivations of Jeremy Renner's doctor character. Like I got it. It made sense to me because all they wanted was to use faith for personal gain.
So clarification here. It's not that I wish I understood more about what this character was going through. I understood what this character was going through. It's just that it was really uninteresting and not given time in the movie.
I feel like they were given equal amounts of non-time to make them essential suspects. You know what I mean?
Right. Okay. Yeah. So I found, pretty much every character to be like so wafer thin that I was like,
with the exception of the two.
With the exception of, well, really with just the exception of Judd. Right.
I can't follow you down this road, man. I don't know.
Like he was the character I was like, okay, there is enough at stake here. It's a really great performance for one from Josh O'Connor. He's this is going to be the year of Josh O'Connor. I don't know. I didn't see the trailer, but
there's a Spielberg movie,
Disclosure Day, which came out today. I was like, and he was on Saturday Night Live this week, and I was like, whoever watched Challenges and like Chimera was like, this is our guy. Yep. From this moment on, this is our guy. And so that is that. I buy that. I'm buying stock on that in that whole idea as well. But honestly, even Glenn Close, who gets the most sort of like motivation to be like the way she is, I really did find by the end of it, the plot mechanics were so convoluted and required so much mechanical pieces to move forward that by the time that she was just spelling it out, I was like, all that's happening here is you're just spelling out this mystery that you've created at this point. And I'm sort of like mildly interested in how it happened. I'm in no way interested in the why it happened.
Oh,
like I am in no way compelled by why this all happened. I'm sort of like, okay, how did that person get out and who got out? Like, when did Father Monsieur end up with his hands on Jeremy Renner's neck inside a vat of acid? I was like, okay, I'm sort of interested in how that happened, but why it happened, I am not here for.
I have no idea why. I just don't. I was enamored.
And in terms of like the cinematic quality of it, like this is sort of a minor thing, but like, I think about to me, the sound of the chase sequence in Brick is deeply cinematic.
Mm-hmm.
And in Knives Out, the first one, there's a chase sequence in that where I go, man, this guy's got a real grasp on like how to deal with tension in this. There's a car chase sequence in that movie where it's like, this guy is so good. He's so good at all of this stuff. And, you know, like the stuff with the actual, like the flipping of who took the pill at what time and what it did. I was like, oh, it's so good. Even in Glass Onion, the idea of like, Edward Norton plants these seeds of mystery because he's invited Benoit Blanc here to solve this. And Benoit Blanc is one step ahead of him and knows that he's planted this seed of mystery. Is like deeply like, I'm in the movie, you know, like I'm in no way questioning the movie. In this one, there's a couple of really cool sequences. Again, I mentioned around like the usage of light coming through the stained glass window. And there's a couple of sequences where like there's one shot, I guess, you know, where Benoit Blanc is basically talking about he's trying to give he's trying to make the parishioners sit in their seats and give a sermon so that they will stay. So he gives enough time to kind of like solve the crime. And in a couple of those moments, I think they're, you know, like the light changes again. And you know, like he basically, the sequence is orchestrated in such a way so that the light comes in at that moment. And I think, you know, maybe it's unfair to say that's not cinematic. That is, but it's also like, it's done with a level of artificiality that I kind of was like, it's cool, but I'm just not here. And I think that has to, you know, again, maybe what that has to come down to is that the characterization of all of these characters and their story really like fell into like a point where all I was just thinking about was the mechanics of this and not the why of it. And, you know, again, when I said I want to take you on a ride in terms of my feelings about this film, is that on top of, at the very beginning of that, is that I will jump on board with whatever Rian Johnson wants to do. If he wants to make 5 more of these movies, or, you know, just spend the rest of, he's a relatively young filmmaker, but spend the rest of his life making these movies, I'm all for it. This was the one where I was like, I think, A, this movie has overstayed its welcome for me because I am not interested in what's happening here.
Yeah. And
then B, it is one where I'm like, the squeeze wasn't worth the juice. You know, like I was like, the third time around, I'm like, I'm starting to feel tired. Despite being excited to come in and to see this, I am starting to feel tired of what this movie, what he's trying to do here. And I feel like this one, like I'll say it right out. This will be my least favorite Rian Johnson movie. And I even have problems with The Last Jedi. So it's like The Last Jedi and this are the least interesting things I think he's done. And like, and this is even going to, you know, he directed some of the greatest episodes of Breaking Bad.
Oh, sure.
And his TV show Poker Face is incredible.
But like, it's when we have conversations like this that it feels like we watched a different movie.
Perhaps.
Like I cannot, the way that this movie, I feel like, navigates its core tenet of, in my opinion, what religion does to people.
Yeah.
I feel like is so much more adept and nuanced than especially Glass Onion. I feel like Glass Onion is like, billionaires are dumb or like, and that's kind of it. Like, it makes you stupid and weird. And like, that's great. And I like it. And the mystery is fun. But this, and again, it shocked me. I expected to go into this movie and be like, it was good. Because I like Rian Johnson. I know he makes good movies. And I walked out of that theater and I was like, this is easily, I think, in my like top 3 of the year. Like I latched onto this thing.
That's great.
It's funny. I don't see. I want to find a moment of commonality before we sign off. I do not disagree that the congregation, the flock, the other people other than those 4 are thinly written.
Yeah.
I think, in my opinion, I have no idea. It worked for me. It did not work for you.
Yeah.
I think that's the point. I think that they are supposed to be, because there's so. Again, ensemble cast, and this is a large topic. I think that they're supposed to be written that way to essentially not overcomplicate what is going on with a lot of reasoning and whatnot to get you more into the not dynamics, the mechanics of the mystery. If the movie was 3.5 hours long or whatever, and we got more into it, I'd probably dig it. But I also didn't mind it here. I just felt like, oh no, I get it. That's why I understand where these characters are coming from and who they are and why they're doing what they're doing. They're also only representing a sliver of what I think this movie is actually talking about. We have a lot of characters to build up a whodunit mystery. I understand why they are underwritten in that way. I like that the majority of the time was spent dealing with the 4 that I mentioned. And the other ones were just support players that can kind of use different machinations to support those 4 elements of the examination of what faith does to a human being. Again, I am agreeing, and it didn't obviously work the same on both of us, and therefore it's not as perfect of a movie as I would have initially posited.
Yeah,
but the movie's fucking dope, and I loved it.
And here's the thing: I don't this is not the things that I'm talking about aren't in a way like Rian Johnson is such a talented filmmaker and such a great writer that like even this. I've thought that same way about The Last Jedi, which is like, I was like, man, was I too harsh on The Last Jedi? But like, I went back and rewatched and I was like, no, I think I still feel the way I feel about it.
Casino Planet?
But they're like, you watch it and you go, man, he's so good at this that like, I always just want to like give it a shot, But honestly, in this one, I really felt, so the thing that we sort of talked about here was the wafer thin characters, which led me to like a question of like, what their motivations were to stay within this flock, which then led me to a question of like, what was the flock, like what was Monsignor Wick doing in order to like cultivate this? Like what was his grand idea? And then to counteract that, what was Martha's, is it Martha, the Glenn Close character? Yes. What was her sort of grand, complicated, like vision of like how to transform that? And then on top of that, there's this actually really convoluted mystery on top of it. And like, again, I delight in Rian Johnson's, when I read something he's written, I think, man, it's such a fun game to read what he's written because he clearly writes at like 1,000 feet above this material and like and he clearly has so much fun weaving together these mysteries and it's like fun to read. But I really was kind of like left by the end of this going, that was fine, I guess. But I honestly, I was like, but I really just didn't connect with anything this movie was trying to do.
I did not expect to. I will say that. And then I absolutely did.
Yeah. Just to go to sort of maybe like a sort of technical thing. I, like you, saw Frankenstein, the Guillermo del Toro Netflix film in a theater, in a 35 millimeter print. And there was a thought I had when I watched that movie, and I don't think I articulated in the podcast episode, but there's an explosion that happens in that movie when Dr. Frankenstein's lair blows up, or his castle blows up, and it's a really 100% CGI manufactured artificial effect. And the thought that I had when I saw that movie in the theater was, man, Guillermo del Toro can get away with the shittiness of the CGI in this moment because he's so good at building up such a fantastic world, and because he's created such this sort of monolith of this world that like even that sort of like shitty CGI, it's not shitty, but it's like it's artificial,
less than
yeah. And I want I sort of gave it that, but then when I went back and read reviews of people who just watched this on Netflix, they all came away, like a lot of the complaints about Frankenstein on Netflix is that it looks terrible.
Well, it's funny because but then it's so, then we get into, and I love that a lot of creators and directors are doing this now. There are people, I believe one of the Duffer Brothers did it for Stranger Things, and a couple other folks that are like putting out TikToks and Instagrams of like, here's how you turn off all the shitty settings on your smart TV. I think I know what you're saying too, but it opened up an interesting thing on the side of it, which is, when you have a home theater, you have no control over the technical elements of how your movie is being shown.
And so one thing I will say is that I can imagine, given my response to the Frankenstein thing, where I was like in a theater watching and going and being very forgiving of all of the elements at play. Although I think I did say in that movie as well, is like Del Toro in that movie is kind of leaning on building a grand set and then shooting it with a wide angle lens and kind of just walking through it. And it's not quite it's not quite as interesting as I think it could be. But so the point I'm coming to here is that you got to see this in a theater. Rian Johnson was there. You got to speak about it. So I imagine the sort of cinematic quality of it kind of plays a bit bigger. Now, admittedly, I have a grand home cinema kind of setup. It used to be your setup. Now, it's funny. Listeners don't know this, but like in the last, I built my own home theater setup, but like slowly I have stolen all the pieces of Matt's old home theater setup. I am like the younger brother in this, and like I'm taking all of your hand-me-downs. My projector kind of is still fine, by the way. If anyone wants to buy a projector, they can probably.
And my old screen when I lived in Jersey was too big for the walls. So it was a 10-foot screen, and I needed an 8-foot screen, so Shear's wall could support it.
I ended up with your screen, and I also now ended up with your old projector.
Yeah, they're all. I like it because they're back together.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. So, but you know, like, admittedly, you and I both have great home theater setups because we care about that experience. Yeah. Neither of us are like the first thing we do whenever we go to anyone's house is turn off filmmaker mode.
Fucking turn off motion blur, smoothing, whatever.
All that stuff. So we're very aware of that experience. But even in this, I guess I have come to expect a certain level of cinema. And I don't know what quality that is, because I think there's a real danger in saying it's a camera setting or it's like the lighting or the two shot or whatever. There's a real danger in that because, you know, Asghar Farhadi makes films that are very much two shots and they're deeply cinematic, you know? So like, it's more about the combination of elements together. And for me, what it really ever comes down to is like how much I am, through the combination of sound, audio, image, lighting, color, acting, performance, writing, all of those things come together to make me care. And in this one, there was very little to make me care. And again, mostly I kind of walked away with going, man, Rian Johnson is so good at like writing mysteries. I wish I cared more about what this one was. I cared enough for both of us. That's great. It didn't play for me. It was the one that kind of like felt like it overstayed its welcome.
Here's what I'm going to do. And I think I know, because again, I kind of, when I loved it as much as I did, I'm like, did I just love the experience of seeing this movie? And
I'm not suggesting that.
I know, but I asked myself that question. And I don't think that's the case. And I am going to rewatch it in two very different ways. I'm going to watch it on my home system, which is a good visual, and my audio is mid. I would say it's fine. It is effective.
I would guarantee you that your audio system is 99% better than most.
But then Shahir, I'm going to go to rural New Hampshire. Rural New Hampshire on my parents' 15-year-old television that is too far away from where the couch is.
CRT, baby.
With literal, not CRT. We're not monsters. And then the audio is going to be both too quiet and too loud out of the TV speakers. And I'm going to watch it again, and I have a feeling I'm going to love it. I'm
sure, because if you care about it, because this is the thing, you and I watched Jurassic Park and Terminator 2 in those kinds of settings, and lots of movies.
But we did see that first in theaters. Yeah,
I watched Stand By Me in that setting. And fell in love and deeply, and to this day will remember and care about like that movie. And I think. This is my least favorite Rian Johnson film, and that is not a besmirch. You know, again, I have bought a lot of stock on Rian Johnson.
How dare you besmirch?
I've been in the Rian Johnson game longer than you have.
You have.
I've been in the Rian Johnson game.
Though I've been more current.
Since day one.
Yeah. I've been here since day 6.
Yeah. And I think I'm just like, again, we're about to watch Avatar 3, and I
have to get tickets for that.
And I'm like, is the juice with the squeeze?
I don't think I'm going to be able to see an IMAX screening of it.
I'm not. Just so you know, before we came here, I bought my tickets because my family is very annoyed at me that would I told you this to you as well. My wife enjoys the Avatar movies, and not on like she cares about the characters, but she enjoys the experience of going to the movie theaters on Christmas Day.
The spectacle.
Yeah. And we can't do that because of the timing of the podcast. I was like, we have to go earlier.
Sorry.
Yeah, so I bought the tickets, and I was like, I know Cameron has invested a lot in the 48 frame. Are they doing the high frame rate 3D for this one?
Yeah, for 3D, yes.
The high frame rate of this, and I'm sure to. Honestly, we were the one of only 20 screens in the planet that saw the Gemini Man in 120 frames per second 3D, and I'm like, and I was like,
what great wide shots!
I know, and I was like, this is so much better in like just 2D.
Yeah,
and it's like and I've watched Avatar a couple of times, and I was like, this is so much better in 2D. So I'm just bought like a straight 2D. I'm like, we're going in for like the Regal Cinema close to us is mostly playing 3D sessions of it. There are 2 sessions that are just standard.
Whoa.
And I was like, give me your blandest flavor,
right.
sir. Give me your most flavorless version of
I'm
this.
probably gonna have to go Sunday. I should probably get tickets.
Should we push it? Like we could do that live. If you,
Yeah, we'll figure it out. I don't think we're gonna have to. You already bought your tickets, and now your family.
I can return my tickets.
Yeah,
Man.
we'll see. We'll see where it goes. Anyway, hey, this has been the only podcast about the film Wake Up Dead Man, A Knives Out Mystery.
Yeah.
Shahir, when you are not singing George Michael at me at the top of your lungs, where can folks find you?
You can find me talking about Last Christmas Till the Day I Die at my website, suvanova.com. That's SUVANOVA.com. Matt, when you are wearing your grandest smock in order to give me the sermon of your life, where can people find you?
You can find me, gotta having faith, the faith, over at my website. Extra credits and extra history, all the YouTube machines. We just released our How the Brand Stole Christmas episodes over on Extra History, which people are very much loving, and I'm so glad that was a 1 of 10, baby. Let's freaking go. That was such an absolute love, and I think by the time this comes out, we will have our compilation of Christmas creatures, our extra mythology complete, where we talk about Krampus and Grilla and the Yule Lads and Kagatillo and Santa Claus and the ghosts from the Christmas Carol. All very, very, very cool stuff. But yeah, and then next week, I believe, unless you hear otherwise on Blue Sky, we will be doing Avatar.
Blue Sky is an appropriate title because we're going to be looking at blue men.
Now I have to make new things of us looking like Na'vi.
Oh man, so much fun!
Oh,
so
yay.
much fun!
All right, we'll
So
talk.
much easier now as well with AI.
We'll talk to you next week.
Bye everyone.
Bye.